41-day period, according to Joint Maritime Information Center. 29% of the crossings since the war began happened only over 2 days, February 28th and March 1st. In March, only an average of 6 ships per day were able to cross. This month, the number has ticked slightly up to 10 ships. About 60% of the ships that have crossed are oil, chemical, and gas tankers, with about a fifth of all the world's oil moving through the strait. Oil prices, of course, have climbed globally in response. Prices dropped after a ceasefire was announced, but could rise again if the strait remains restricted. Let's bring in Aaron McLean. He's a CBS News national security analyst and a columnist for the Free Press. A quick note, the Free Press and CBS News share Paramount Skydance as a parent company. So, Aaron, what do you make of the president's announcement today to clear the strait? How long do you think an operation like that could take?
Well, it's extraordinarily significant. I think it's also significant and sort of characteristic of the way that the Trump administration does business, that this announcement was made, and indeed that the operation appears to be occurring, or at least its opening phases are occurring, at the exact same time as these potentially very consequential talks in Islamabad. So as important as what's happening in Islamabad is right now, and I do want to underscore something that Imtiaz noted a moment ago, which is that it is extremely significant that the two sides are sitting in the same room together. The Iranian side has, over the years, essentially not deigned to sit in the same room as American negotiators. The fact that they are all in the same room is a significant concession in and of itself by the Iranians, and kind of cuts against some of the crazier rhetoric or edgier rhetoric, perhaps, that we've heard from them over the course of the last few days since the ceasefire was agreed to. A long-term operation to clear the strait, to answer your question directly, Lindsay, could take some time. And what you saw today was what appears to be a so-called freedom of navigation exercise, where American warships sailed through the strait essentially to show that they could, to show that the waters were navigable, and to show, or to test really whether or not they were going to get shot at.
What about the mine situation of it all? How do they know which ways to go to avoid that?
Well, you've heard the president claim that we have information about where the mines are. The mine picture in terms of publicly available information is very unclear. It's not clear how many mines there are in the water. It's certainly not public where they are. The Iranians seem to suggest by means of graphics that they put out that they are in the vicinity of the typical shipping lanes. Just to remind everyone how the Strait of Hormuz actually functions, there's a main international shipping lane that runs through the middle of the strait. And what the Iranians have been doing in the last few days is saying, sure, the strait's open. You just essentially have to get our permission and sail through this northern lane that runs along the Iranian coast. So it's not entirely clear where the mines are. The fact that we are sailing our ships through the water indicates that we have some degree of confidence that our ships are either able to detect them or are not going to run into them one way or the other. But again, I think the other massively significant thing about this operation, sort of suspenseful thing when you think about it, is would these ships get shot at by the Iranians? It was certainly not a given that they would not be. I've not seen any reports that there's been combat in the strait today, and the fact that there hasn't been is itself a kind of major concession from the Iranians.
So the president, as I have mentioned in this broadcast, told the New York Post yesterday, U.S. warships are being reloaded with the best ammunition to resume strikes on Iran if peace talks fail. What does failure look like? What is his bar?
Well, the two sides are extremely far apart. The president's been pretty consistent on 2 points in recent days. One, he's not really budged on his demands on the nuclear issue. Iran must not be allowed to have enrichment. He's spoken numerous times about the removal of the highly enriched uranium in Iran through some sort of diplomatic process. If that's what the American side is saying inside the room, we don't know for sure. I want to emphasize that. I just want to say what's been publicly communicated. And the other thing that the administration has been very clear about is the strait itself. I think there's been increasing seriousness and recognition in recent days about just how dire it is, that the numbers that you just had up on the screen, the highly limited amount of traffic going through the strait is, we are, weeks, if not in some cases days, or even at the outset in some parts of the world, of genuine fuel shortages. Not just price hikes, but shortages. And when you get scarcity in supply, you're going to start to see parts of the global economy grinding to a halt. It feels a little bit like the early days of COVID in very early 2020, when people following the situation closely could see the catastrophe coming, but it hadn't quite hit yet. If the strait is not reopened shortly, there is a economic catastrophe coming.
Wow. Aaron McLean, thank you.
Thank you.